Podfix Network.
Hello and welcome to episode 206 of the Filmmakers Podcast.
Jesus, really?
It's 206. Can you believe it? This is the Filmmakers Podcast, where we talk filmmaking from indie film to studio films and everything in between. How to get them made, how to make them, and how to try not to...
Don't say it, because they'll censor you and they'll make it like that kids can't listen anymore.
I already have that option on because we swear so much in the podcast. I've already got explicit when I put it up, so kids shouldn't be listening to you saying...
Try not to fuck it up.
There you go. Thank you. I am delighted to have on today as my co-host, Dan Richardson. Now, Dan is an actor, he's a filmmaker, and he's an animal conservationist. Hello, buddy.
Hello, mate. I can't believe it's episode 206. Congratulations. It's amazing. I can remember when it started. I remember the first episode.
Yeah, we sat in a studio in Mill Hill and had some fun, didn't we, on that first one? If you dare go back and listen to the first one, then have fun you. We have changed since then. We've also made more films since then.
All of our advice would be different now. No, it wouldn't.
Yes, exactly. Totally different advice now.
Don't listen to them.
So, today's episode, before me and Dan talk some shit, today's episode is with the fantastic Emma Biggins, producer of School's Out Forever, and Ollie Milburn, the director of School's Out Forever, which is out today. It's a fantastic movie. Myself and Dan worked with Ollie and Emma on their first feature, The Harsh Light of Day. Dan was the star of it and I was in it too, and you can go watch that now. It's a brilliant movie.
Yeah, cool in every way. It was a great effort, like a incredible example. Because it's an incredible example of independent filmmaking at its best, because as these guys will talk about in today's episode, it was actually their grad project.
Yeah.
And that's incredible. It speaks volumes about their ability and their tenacity, and what they did, I thought was it. So that's when I say great effort. It was incredible because it came out a really good, really respectable film, and they had everything stacked against them, from budget to resources to time frame to experience and ability at that point in their career. It was incredible. Mm-hmm. So hats off to them.
I totally agree. Absolutely hats off to them. What else did you learn from recording this week's episode, Dan?
So what I love about this episode is the way Ollie talks about how he shifted focus within the business, didn't even look at directing for some years, and the amazing advice they give us regarding the release of The Harsh Light of Day and how they sold that film.
We also talk deeply about their new movie, School's Out Forever, and how you can get an option on a novel. We also talk about financing a film and how Rebellion, the brilliant games company, came on board, and how important it is to have dogged determination.
They talk about how just to get through the film, you've got to stick to the plan, and then they talk about how they marketed their movie, so you can learn how to market your movie.
You absolutely can. We also talk about the actual release strategy which Rebellion did, and how they've gone direct to consumers themselves, and how they're releasing on all platforms. It is an incredible episode. You will learn so much from Ollie and Emma. They are brilliant people. We've missed them in our lives, actually, so it's really nice to reconnect that me and Dan have done. So you're going to enjoy this episode. Dan, you appeared on the Christmas episode, but actually the whole of 2020 you hadn't been on the podcast, so it's a delight to have you back.
It's a delight to be back.
Good.
Oh, it's such a pleasure, man. Thanks for having me back. I mean, it's such a nice little reunion for us, isn't it? Because like you said, it's actually, aside from a little TV commercial where we actually officially first met and became aware of each other, that was actually the first time that we really spent any time together, and we worked both on that film. You downplayed your role. You were a co-lead on that, and it was it was an amazing opportunity, especially for me. I mean, that was the first lead I'd done in a feature. And it's such a nice opportunity, such a great reunion to reconvene with you, Ollie, Emma, talk about the old days, talk about where they've been since. And it's quite extraordinary. I mean, think about the fact that here we are 10 years down the line, having a conversation about the journey we've taken since. That just epitomizes for me how fast time flies. And you've got to take the bull by the horns, You've got to say yes to opportunities.
And I think that's what's kind of really cool about this podcast as well, because we can get to do that. But Dan, I wanted to talk to you about, you've just been shooting a short, but you also came and shot a nice little cameo in The Stranger in Our Bed, which interestingly, I've just delivered the first rough cut to the producers. Me and Ollie Park have just done that, which is kind of super exciting. You're in that. You're also shooting Fire Rises at the moment, Paul Knight's latest feature. You're on a roll, Dan Richardson.
Well, you know what? I'm on a roll thanks almost entirely to you, mate, because you gave me a little cameo in Stranger in Our Bed, which I was very grateful for, and then also put me forward to Paul Knight to play opposite Paul Marlon in Fire Rises, and I'm so grateful to be on board with both of those opportunities. And you know, the reason why that was so valuable to me is because as an actor and a filmmaker, I had taken that decision over the course of the last year or two to just focus more wholeheartedly on food for thought. And it just simply didn't leave time to be doing both.
For those who don't know, documentary is all about the plant-based lifestyle, animal welfare, and just generally how you can make the world a better place. And it's something me and Dan have been, passionate about for so long. We wanted to put it out there. And some of you listening to this podcast regularly will know about it. Those who don't, that's what me and Dan have been doing, and we're very close now. If you want to know more, go to foodforthoughtdoc.com, where you can read up all about that. Don't forget as well, The Dare is out now on Amazon Prime if you're in the UK. You can watch it for free if you've got Amazon Prime, obviously. So do go do that. Do support. Thank you for those who have. I've had some amazing comments last couple of weeks. Honestly, really love you guys for doing that and just reaching out and saying how much you enjoyed the film and appreciate the shit that's gone into it and the hard work. And as you've heard on this podcast, how difficult it is to make a film, and everyone knows that now who listens regularly. So good. Thank you for that. Do go watch if you can. If you're in America, rest of the world, you can see it. Type The Dare into your film browser if you have one.
It's your film browser.
Yeah, it's like it's a browser. It's like, what film do you want to watch? And you just type in, or you say, The Dare.
I'd like to watch The Dare, please. And then the TV will go, I think you said The Dare. And then she goes, hi.
It's programmed. I love it. Thank you for joining us on this one, Dan. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this week's episode of the Filmmakers Podcast with the fantastic Emma Biggins and the absolute delightful Oliver Milburn, myself, Giles Alderson, and Dan Richardson. Hello.
Hello, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
You can hear me, right?
Yeah, we can hear you. And you sound amazing. Listen to that microphone.
I just had some toast and I inhaled a crumb. And I was like coughing and splushing for the last 10 minutes thinking, am I going to be able to do this podcast? Biggins, how are you?
I'm good.
God, it's been a long time.
It has been a long time.
Nice. Oh, good. So this is a perfect reunion. We'll just wait for Ollie. You're on mute, Ollie.
Great. I just thought, you have to do that at the start of a meeting.
You have to do that. Hello, buddy.
Hello, mate. How you doing?
I'm good. Lovely to see you.
Yeah, you too.
Really cool. Really cool. We were just trying to catch up on how long it's been, and worked out it's been too long.
I should warn in advance, I am in a hotel, and I specifically changed hotel with the production because this is rumoured to have decent Wi-Fi, which a hotel in Wales with decent Wi-Fi is very rare.
Always fun. And why are you in Wales?
I am working on a Sky show called Extinction, not as director, as the VFX supervisor. So yeah, trying to balance that with School's Out coming out and all that.
And it's such a weird thing, isn't it, when we've got a movie coming out, but yet we've still got to do any other job that will come along. Everyone thinks that, I think, when you make a movie, that that's it, your life's going to change, you never need to do anything else again, you can just sit in a lovely coastal resort and write your script, or in a barn in the middle of nowhere and write your next one. No chance.
Ollie, I think that was your perception post Harshlight, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. I was like, right, this is it. We're going to be, it's going to be, next script will probably be paid on a plate. I don't know if that's a phrase, but yeah.
It's a good one. Paid on a plate is a silver platter as well.
Yeah.
You do think that, don't you? Isn't it funny when we first start making movies, we do think everyone's get paid a fortune for it and stuff.
I was just talking to a director who I've worked with, not on this show, but on a couple of TV shows before the other day, who's I obviously won't mention his name, but is in his 50s, and he was sort of saying he's very successful, but he was sort of saying it's still a hustle every day. It's a hustle to get the next project, to get the next person to read the next thing, or to So yeah, it goes on.
It does, isn't it weird? And I think as long as you know that, I think it puts you in a better place to sort of go, don't expect, just you've got to do the work. No one's going to knock on your door. And if they do, great. And you hope that they're all right and not too crazy. But if you don't keep knocking on the door, it's not going to happen, right? Because, I mean, it's a big gap between, the first one, Harsh Light of Day, 2012, it actually came out. And now, which is nearly 10 years later for School's Out. And during that time, you've been trying to make more movies, right?
Yeah, sort of. We both have in a way, I suppose.
Yeah, but Foley is a director, right, on that side of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a funny, in a weird way for both me and Emma, there's a funny thing that happened where I certainly felt after School's Out, after Harsh Light, I was really, really proud of the film and obviously really proud of everyone who worked on it. But I felt that I had done that thing slightly where I had written a script that I thought was really good, and then I had possibly somewhat arrogantly said, I'm going to direct this as well. And actually, on set, my technical, I think I've always considered myself, this sounds incredibly pretentious, but a storyteller and a good storyteller. And that's where my natural experience comes from, just from reading and from, devouring all forms of narrative media. And I think that when we made Harsh Light, that part of me was very strong, but I didn't really have the skills to not to know what I wanted, but to communicate how to get that to the crew. And there was just so much technical knowledge I didn't have. And at that point, as I say, prior to School's Out release, I've been a full-time VFX supervisor for some of my career. And at the time I made Harsh Light, I didn't even know how a green screen worked. That's something that I'd learned since. And also, cinematography and things. I think we did, that's a very long-winded way of saying we did keep making films, and certainly kept making shorts and things like that, and developing scripts, because as I say, the narrative and School's Out was a long development process, and scripts always been, where my home is. But in terms of actually making films, I think more for me, I actually it's more a case of going away and learning how to do it really properly, really learning to make the most of the money on screen, and how these things work in a kind of nuts and bolts way. And in fact, for a while, I was literally a camera technician, thanks to Emma. Emma got me a job as a camera technician.
Amazing.
So, it kind of, it really learning just all these different aspects of it. And as I say, particularly the one that I particularly flew into and made a career out of was visual effects, but I was trying to learn everything at that time, and then it feels very satisfying for that to sort of come back around and work with Emma on School's Out, which, as I say, we've been developing for so long, and then feel like we managed to deliver something that is the result of that experience, if that makes sense.
It totally does. And School's Out is brilliant. School's Out Forever is so good. It's a really good movie. It really is. And we'll come back to that, because I want to talk to you all in depth about that, me and Dan do. But I wanted to talk, obviously, about how we all met and our first film. I'm still very proud of it. I think it's a really good movie. It's, for what you made it on, what was it, 15, 20K, something like that?
2.5 million.
Sure, yeah. I haven't watched it in years, and I keep thinking, just particularly lately, I keep thinking, it's about time I watch that again. And I just I don't feel like it's quite the right time. I think sometime this year I'm going to sit down and watch it, because it's been years since I've watched that film, and it's definitely due another rewatch. It was our first feature, but essentially it was our grad film. We were at film school, and that was so we had a specific window of the summer of 2009 to make a film.
If I'd known it was a student film, we might have gone, I don't know, I'm not sure. I'm sure we did, I can't remember. But you guys were so cool. I remember meeting you guys and thinking, yeah, these guys are great. They seem to know what they're doing. They know what they're talking about. They seem really lovely. And I think that's really important for when you're sort of starting out and you are sort of blagging it in some way, is you've got a vision, and you guys had a real vision. Dan, what do you remember from that time?
I remember being, and Emma and I have spoken about this before, like nearer the time it happened, I remember trying to be somewhat contained and cool when because you don't want to come across as oh my God, this is amazing for me. Nothing like this has ever happened to me. Because I want them to trust that I can do the job. And obviously we'd gone through the audition process where you and I had seen each other, Giles, if you remember, on the way to the auditions. We met at the train station accidentally, and we knew each other. from a TV commercial we'd done, and then turned out we were both on the way to this. Well, you were reading for me. You'd already got the role of Infinari, and I was auditioning for Daniel, and
you were trying to butter me up to try and make me pick you.
Emma called me up to say, yeah, we'd like to offer you the role, and I was literally just jumping up and down for joy, because I'd loved the script. It was the best script I'd read at that point. In fact, it still is one of the best scripts I've read.
It is 20 years on nearly, Dan.
I thought it was such a strong script, and it was such a great character to get your teeth into, no pun intended, but it was just, I was just over the moon. I just remember being so thrilled when Emma told me that I had the gig, and I was trying to be sort of, like, oh, that's great news, thanks very much, looking forward to it. And I was going, ah!
Well, it was a vampire story in a way, but it was disguised as a really cool home invasion drama, wasn't it, in some way, and I think that's why it appealed. It was just really interesting. What do you remember about that time now, looking back, you two, in terms of, or three of you as well, in terms of how it felt to make a movie like that, a feature film, and then get it released? What are your memories of it now, looking back? What would you have done differently? What would you have changed? Can you remember anything that would help our listeners go, okay, that's how they made a first film, what not to do or what to do?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really tricky question, because I think with all films, kind of, once you're at the end of it, you kind of feel like that couldn't have happened any other way, which I know is not helpful advice, but we sort of rolled through it like someone, I don't know, rolling down a thorny hill, like just seeing what we hit.
Which pricks you can jump on the way down.
Easy.
I mean, there's definitely things I'd do different, but I think we did some things really well. And I'm honestly not just saying this just because of present company, and that, we did very well with you two in the cast, as in those are the sort of the shining performances of the film, and really bolster it up. And also, the way you both, which is, I mean, now it's so obvious that you're now, making a podcast called the Filmmakers Podcast. Your passion, both of you, for making the film with us was amazing, and that was so helpful because it so drove the process. And I remember thinking, being so humbled by, particularly Dan, your sort of investment in it, and your kind of, and because we were like sleeping on set and stuff like that. Obviously we had rooms, but like we were shooting in this one big house, and there was like, it was real sort of real indie stuff. And we I think, I mean, it's a tricky thing to even think about. I mean, there's a world in which I often think there's a world in which I'd taken that script and done a bit more work on it, because as Emma says, we kind of had to get it ready for the end of the year, which sounds ridiculous, but and then used it as a writing sample and tried to become a writer off that. But that in itself would have had so many more, such a different trajectory and twists and turns, and wouldn't necessarily have been as successful. Any route you go down like that, you're opening yourself up to, successes and failures, and more often than not failures. So it kind of, I think ultimately the only thing I can say is I think we did the right thing, even if a part of that process was to, to make a film that perhaps wasn't perfect, but that taught us so much about what making films is about, and what we needed to, as I say, particularly for me, like what I needed to do to come back and make them better. And again, that's not to say I don't think that I'm very, very proud of the film, but I think it's very much what we could do at the time with the money, and particularly with my experience. I mean, it's kind of I don't even know if I should admit this on a podcast, but I remember quite embarrassingly being like trying to describe a track to the camera team. Like I was saying, basically what I was saying was I wanted to track to the left, but I was sort of just like crabbing along, pointing my fingers at the, because I was so much from the writing side there, and I think there was a lot of, I will admit, I think there's a lot of hubris for me in saying I'm going to direct this, but I also think in that same spirit of how you learn and how you become a filmmaker, I also think I kind of had to, or I certainly don't think if we hadn't made that film, I would be standing on sets now. I think in best case scenario, I would be sitting in my room writing, which is one of the most noble professions there is, as far as I'm concerned. But I get a certain something out of the nuts and bolts of making something that I don't think I'd be experiencing now. And as I say, the whole film really was down to I think when you're the director and the producer, you know, you're sort of duty bound to give it your all. But that film wouldn't exist without all you guys, without the crew putting, you know, everything into it and putting everything on the line for it. And, you know, so for that, you just can't be anything other than grateful. And that's why I'm always very wary of like talking about it in anything other than shining terms. But, you know, if we're being self-critical sort of filmmakers on this podcast, you know, you have to do that a bit.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And it's so lovely to hear, because what I find amazing there is you went, no, let's not make a short, let's make a feature. And the fact that it has opened up your career, like you say, you might not be where you are now, both of you. The fact that you were brave enough to go, yeah, we want to make a feature. This is what we're going to do. Let's cast actors. Let's do this properly. Was incredible. And I, you know, hats off to you guys for doing that. And you've both had great careers because of that. Who knows what would have happened without it, right? Emma, what do you remember from that time? You know, was it literally jumping feet first into something that was just a little bit crazy?
100% it was. Yeah, it was. Yeah, I think we just, you know, as Ollie said, it is very much, I mean, I feel like every film I work on, there's a little bit of that element of when you're a kid, sit at the top of a hill and you start running down and you have no control. All you got to do is just keep trying to put one foot in front of the other and hope you don't hit a stone and stumble. And it was very much, that was very much the case with Harsh Light. I think, I feel like, I want to say like 3 weeks. I think, Ollie, you started to write and you had the draft in 3 weeks, and that's pretty much what we shot. So, I mean, yeah, totally in normal circumstances, you'd have a lot of script development and several drafts. And, you know, that it's not so that, you know, it was a great script, but I'm sure it would have benefited from that process. But we had this window of time to make this film, and you know, Ollie came up with what, you know, a script that we believed in, and something that we could use to sort of gather the troops, really, and because of the script and I guess our energy and our ambition, we managed to just bring on this fantastic team. Just, I mean, the goodwill of all the cast and crew is so important when you make, you know, when you've got no money and you're trying to do something like this. I mean, anybody that's made a no or low budget film knows that it's a real team effort. You know, everybody's sort of on level footing. There was a lot of people learning, like we were. You know, it was, for a lot of people, it was their first film. I think, yeah, it just felt like everyone was in it together, and everyone, you know, all the crew, like Ollie said, all the crew lived in the house that we shot in. And Dan as well. I think one day we shot for 22 hours or something.
We did. That's exactly right. I still tell that story, 22 hours. And do you remember why we finished that day? Is because we were sitting in the living room doing a scene. I can't remember the scene. I was having such a good time. I was ready to do more. And Toby, the first AD, in the middle of a scene, and we were struggling because we were 22 hours in. I think everyone was struggling to keep it together.
I'll stay awake.
But we were halfway through a good take. It was like you just felt that feeling of like, oh, we're going to get it. We're finally going to get it. And Toby just went cut, and someone looked at him and went, "What you say? Why are you saying cut? What was that?" And he went. And he'd obviously fallen asleep, woken up and just said cut. And then he went, there was a booming shot. And there wasn't at all. And that was where we wrapped. I think that's where we wrapped for the day, because it was like, yeah, this is clearly too much.
It's amazing. That's so fun. And he's gone on to be a very well-established colorist now, right? Hasn't he?
He has, yeah.
Yeah, which is incredible. Quite a lot of the team have. You know, used to work with David Spragg, who's the editor on that. He edited Schools Out forever, right? I mean, and it's really nice to see, you know, some of the cast are still, Sophie Linfield. Who else was in there? Nikki Folstead, Paul Jakes, Wesley McCarthy, Matthew Tom, Tim Henley, you know, some really, really cool people. John Joe McCallie, Steve McCartan, you know, that we still know and still around and still making things. And, you know, over 10 years later, or 12 now, I suppose, when we actually shot it, is really incredible. Looking back, is there anything you'd say to your younger selves now?
I would prepare myself more for that thing you mentioned right at the start of this, of this notion that I think when at that time when we were making films, it was just on the precipice of when it was still, and just to be really clear, it's a massive thing to make a feature and a massive achievement to get a feature made in any form. But we were on that precipice where it was still kind of some people were still using 35mm to do it. Because we used, very early days digital cameras to make, harsh light, and it was still, there was still this idea in there that it was a massive thing to make a feature, as in, like, if you made a feature film at that time, it didn't matter what it was like. You that was the start of your career. Just having got it done was enough to, and I would probably prepare myself for that not to be the case, as in we were also making it in the time of DVD shelves and kind of this idea that, exactly as you said, just that if you make a film and you think that then that's the work done basically, and actually it's just the start of it, and actually the next thing you should have is your next project, which we did, but it took 10 years to make. But yeah, I think I would just prepare myself more for that mentally, because I actually you were just saying about persevering and still making stuff. I actually went away from filmmaking for a little while, for like a couple of years, because I was so upset by the bad reviews, and that's when I started doing more of the technical stuff. That was part of the reason for that. I was like, right, I'm gonna, there was a combination of, as I said earlier, I wanted to learn more about the nuts and bolts, but I also, I was like, God, I've done a degree in this now, and I should probably find a way of making a living from it, and all that kind of thing. And I stopped making stuff for a little while, just because, and this is it's my own failing, it's my own mental failing, but because I was hurt by those things. I was not prepared for the world not to give me a pat on the back and say, well done, just for doing it. I think we were funny in that we just, as you said, you asked about the release of it, and that was a whole other experience. And again, sort of expecting it to lead to things that perhaps it didn't. But we were released at just such a level that we weren't quite a sort of, I don't quite know how to describe it, we weren't quite a sort of unnoticed, scrappy indie film, in the sense that we sort of got a weird amount of notice, because, as I say, it was still at a time when making a film in itself was a pretty big thing. But then that meant it was sort of in the Guardian next to major releases of the week, and getting pretty bad reviews, if I'm perfectly honest. We got from what you might consider like our neat little area of genre film, we got some pretty decent write-ups, but in the because people got, and it's funny Emma was saying about the 3 weeks to write the script, and a lot of the comments were, it feels like this script is a mishmash of things taken from other places. I like this, because that's exactly what it was. I had 3 weeks. It was like, I'll take that thing from there and that thing from there, and I'll smash them together.
Best way to do it, isn't it? Steal from the best, right?
And yeah, so we were pretty well liked amongst our kind of movies outlets, but in general it was not well received, and I found that really, really difficult, because I think I thought that it was more a sense of like, I don't understand, and obviously we've now, the internet's now grown up, and we know that vitriol is its main currency, but I didn't understand why people were being so unkind about this thing that we tried so hard to do, and with no other real desire other than for people to be entertained by it. And I know that's incredibly naive, but I'd sort of sit to it's a very long-winded answer to your question, but I'd sit myself down and say, listen, that's what you think is going to happen is not going to happen, and here's what's going to happen, but it's all right, because it will all feed into who you become and what your future of filmmaking is. And and now I genuinely, I mean, I'm not inviting bad press, we want good press obviously, but now I'm genuinely sort of, I don't, especially with, don't go into the comments. Whenever you release something, you'll get every response under the earth, and you just have to hope that some people enjoy it.
You do, and that's what I find amazing about this is, I've been burnt many times back when I was acting, and certainly films come out, and what I've found is that people like ourselves who like films, we often don't comment on them. We won't write a review. We won't go bother. It's those people who have a bee in the bonnet. They want to get their anger out. If someone doesn't like something, that's when you write a review. It's very rare you write a review because you like something. People just don't do it. So therefore, all we see, and all you saw for the Harsh Light Day, and especially then because the internet was kind of just starting its growth of anyone can write anything, you can be a hero by calling someone out in that small ridiculous world that it was. And the Harsh Light Day got a lot of that shit. What you didn't see at the time was all the wonderful praise that people have since said to Dan, myself, probably Emma, over that time, that really enjoyed the movie a lot. But at the time it really hurt, and I can understand that. I get it. You know, I've had it myself, and it's horrible. It really is. But it's interesting that you said, after a while, having that break of going, yeah, I don't care. I still want to make films. I'm still a good director, and I want to do that. And it takes balls to do that. And most people don't make a second movie, and because of the shit you get from it, and you did, which is incredible.
I think, I mean, a part of that, and one of the not that I'm a huge advice giver, but one of the questions that always gets asked, should you work in the industry, or should you have if you're an aspiring filmmaker, should you work in the industry, or should you have another job and just chip away at it? I always land on the side of you should work in the industry, because one of the things that got me back into doing it, and as you say, going, I am a good filmmaker, like I can do this, is I don't mean this critically, but being on set now, as I say, I developed my VFX career and got on set with all these really good directors, and I saw great directors make terrible stuff because of various factors I saw happen during the production, and I saw, frankly, not great directors make stuff that had an amazing script and an amazing crew behind it, and it came out okay and was pretty good on TV, and everywhere on the spectrum in between. And then I was lucky enough occasionally to see amazing directors make amazing stuff. It made me realize that all of those things feed into the quality. I mean, to even say the quality of a film is an absurd term to me now. I mean, a film is a collision of chaotic events that ends in this thing, and it looks like what it looks like. To take the ego out of it, basically, and it's not about you, it's about trying to make a good film, and if you don't, you don't, but the more you do it, the better you get at it. And I think making Schools Out Forever, I'm really proud of Schools Out Forever, and I think that it's good, and I'm not coming on this podcast going my film's good, but I mean, it feels very much like a vindication of that process, and a kind of, I feel comfortable now. I feel comfortable now with other people not liking it, basically, because I can sort of say, I do. So, that's fine.
Amazing. And it's amazing to hear. And you're so right. That's the right attitude. People won't like it, but fuck them. You really like it, and you've worked hard at it, and you're proud of it. Absolutely the right attitude. And one of the films you worked on when you were doing the VFX was Deborah Haywood's Pincushion, which is a fantastic movie, and she's been on. So that's one of them I imagine hopefully inspired you. Even though, you've been, Schools Out was probably around the same time that push was happening. Emma, same question to you then. What would you say to your younger self?
Well, weirdly, in a similar sort of thing to Ollie, but from a producer's perspective, I think there was a big part of me that kind of thought, at that stage you could read about a lot of these very rare examples like Blair Witch, where people had made films with no money and then made loads of money from it, and it had done really well. It was box office hit, and I think there was a little bit in my mind that we'd make this no budget film and it'd be amazing, and we'd make loads of money, and we'd all not get rich, but we'd do really well out of it, and we'd be one of those examples in the history books, which, I think buying a lottery ticket, I think I'd probably be luckier. Which it isn't to say that it will, it's not a great film. Again, incredibly proud of it. But I think I definitely remind myself of why we were making it. And that was just to, it was almost in its entirety, that summer was our film school in a way, because we just, there was a lot of blagging involved in getting it off the ground, and then we just learned so much. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just trying to get this film made, and I remember shortly after we'd finished it, I remember watching it with Ollie, and Ollie saying, that shot there, that is the one single shot in the film that was what I imagined that shot to be. That's the only shot that's ended up, and it's I'll tell you what shot it was. It's a slightly Dutch shot of an alleyway, and it's you walking down the alleyway with headlights. I think you were going into the brothel you're tracking down, and it's that one Dutch shot. And Ollie said that's the only shot that's made it into the the final cut of the film that I had in my mind before we started shooting.
And that's not to say that like I thought all the other shots were a disaster. It's more that like it's also like that picture. It's when you have in your head a storyboard frame and then you compare, and sometimes you have it for real, obviously, but like a storyboard frame, and then you compare it to the final frame, and everything else for this cascade of reasons that I was talking about earlier. The chaos of it was different in some way. The location was different, the costume was different, the tone was different, the lighting was different. Whatever it was, everything else was different, and again, not necessarily worse, but different. And that's the sort of like mincing machine that it goes the filmmaking process goes through on a low budget. It kind of but yeah, I remember that. And funny, just another funny little anecdote about the craziness of that film. That scene, I don't know if you remember, we shot during the wrap party because we hadn't shot it yet. And,
oh really?
And there was a corridor. Then there was a corner. I can't remember quite why we were doing the wrap party a few days before the end of shoot, but there was a alleyway just around from where the cafe where we were doing the wrap party. And I was like, this alleyway is perfect. And then everybody just was like, well, the camera's in the truck. Let's, and it was Dan's own car that was the car. So it was like, well, let's do it.
I love that. You see, that's indie filmmaking right there. And the fact is, that's what you learned to just let's get on with it. Like you say, Emma, you were just learning on the hoof, but that's the best way when you're making an indie film for no money. And you've gone on to produce so many amazing films. Verity Summer was the one you really worked hard and production managed, and you both worked on Stalled actually. Allies, Kicking Off, Writer's Retreat, Golden Years, The Hippopotamus, a Pincushion as well. Beast, The Vanishing, Slaughterhouse Rules, 47 Meters Down. Uncaged. You know what I mean? These are all you've developed this wonderful way of continuing in the business. But I suppose, just carrying on that about what you felt now looking back, what you might have done differently, or what you could help filmmakers out there go, if only I'd done this or learnt this or knew that.
The most important thing for me was that was a learning experience, and I think I'm a little bit of a control freak anyway, but just sort of feeling this, trying to pigeonhole it into something that I thought it should be, when actually the most important thing was to sort of just make this film and accept things that I didn't know, rather than try and blag it and pretend that I did know stuff. Just accept things that I didn't know and try and learn throughout the experience. I think that's the most important thing. If you're making your first feature and you've not had a lot of experience, I just think absorb as much as possible. And I feel like I maybe could have got a little bit more out of the experience, rather than just being so focused on trying to make this product that I can sell and make loads of money with, which wasn't the most important thing.
But you had a lot of responsibility on your shoulders, didn't you? I mean, you had this huge crew and cast, and everyone had hopes. Everyone had these the dreams that you guys, and if you like, I think you're being a bit harsh on yourselves with the naivety of thinking this is going to be it. We're going to make a movie and it's going to. I was the same, and you as the producer, it was you that had everyone coming to you saying, "So have we heard anything from Universal yet?" Like, it was you that had all of that emphasis on you. So I can well imagine that you were kind of incentivized to focus on that, even if you hadn't have felt it was so important at the time. Everyone else was telling you it was. And
it did take a while to come out. Let's talk about that then, and in the release of the movie and how you release your first movie, because that's something that people can go out there now and make a film on their iPhone. You can, but it's and it can be amazing, or it can be terrible. But it's how you then get that out to the public. And sadly, you can get idiots online being mean, but at the same time, you can also get a career out of it. So how did you actually get it released? How did you get it out into the world?
It feels like it was a really tricky time, because it was that we were sort of still on the cusp of digitization and online release, like, you know, Netflix wasn't around then, Amazon Prime wasn't around then, but online releases were a thing. I think Distrify maybe had just started then, and, you know, they're long gone, and there's plenty of platforms like that have sort of come and gone over the years. You know, there were examples of people doing their own sort of self-distribution. You know, crowdfunding, I think, was a bit of a thing, was becoming a bit of a thing at that stage as well. But very much so, there was still the sort of traditional distribution route, which was still the sort of norm, I guess. And that's ultimately what we did with Harshlight. Whether that was the right thing or not, I don't know. It's a little bit of there's always a little bit of reluctance, you know, particularly for me at the time. The idea of having, you know, done all this work, and all these people done all this work, and then someone walks in right at the end and says, yeah, I'll sell this film, but I want all this money, or I want, you know, 50% or 25%, and I get all this up front. And you think, well, hang on a minute, that doesn't seem right. And it took me a while to get my head around that. But it wasn't our only option, but it felt like our only sort of realistic option. And for somebody that was so keen to just get the film out there and do it properly, which, you know, in hindsight, perhaps I shouldn't have been like that. I should have been more sort of open-minded and think, well, let's be experimental, and let's learn about these other things because this is what this whole process is meant to be about, making this film. We've got a distributor for UK, and then an international sales agent for rest of the world. And the film got released in the UK on DVD. We did a small theatrical run, which was sort of self-organised, really. We played in a few cinemas and did Q&As, it was kind of event screenings, which were really good fun. And I kind of wish we'd have pushed more.
Well, it's always so nice to see it on the big screen, isn't it? That's kind of what it's worth it, you know, because the DVD just sort of, there it is, it's over there somewhere, whereas those event screens you can get your friends and get other people and push and talk about it.
Yeah, and it's a good shop window for it as well, you know. It was good, you know, it's all good marketing, you know, even if it doesn't make you any money, and being able to talk about it and meeting the people that watch it, I think is always a really useful thing. And it's something that we would have done for Schools Out, for sure, around this time.
Of course you would, yeah.
But obviously that's not going to happen. So yeah, ultimately it went straight to DVD, and got pirated almost immediately. We were very upset about.
In the wrong aspect ratio.
Oh God.
If you're going to do it.
Yeah, do it properly, you morons. It really pisses me off. It really annoys me. They don't seem to understand that indie filmmakers work so hard on something like this and put all their heart and soul into this. For 3 years you've been trying to get this out there after filming it. He gets out there and someone pirates it in the wrong aspect ratio. It's like, you fuckers. So that means people going, oh, I watched your movie last night. Yeah, where did you watch it? Oh, I found this.
There was a bit of that. I genuinely had people who, friends of mine who didn't quite, I think at that time didn't quite realise the sort of the implications of saying, yes, I watched it online last night, and I was like, it's not online. So
oh my gosh. Yeah, it's so sad. Emma, what did you learn from selling the movie then? Because suddenly you've got to dive into contracts and understanding that world, which takes people lifetimes to understand the pros and cons, the ins and outs, how people can hoodwink you in contracts like that. Looking back now, what did you learn from it? How did you navigate those horrible choppy waters?
I sort of don't really feel like we were hoodwinked into anything. I mean, I hadn't read contracts like that before, but I had an idea of the things to look out for, you know, caps on expenses. And the sales agent and distributor, it was part of the same company, and they were a niche horror distributor and sales agent. They weren't huge. Do you know, it's weird. I would have maybe tried to negotiate a short term. And I didn't have we didn't have lawyers involved. You know, I didn't have anybody legal look over it.
Well, we didn't have the money either, you know. That's it. You can't afford that.
I just, you know, I had a look at it. There's a producer called Richard Johns, who's based at Bournemouth University while we were doing our MA there. But he was kind of a mentor to me, and was really, you know, super helpful with getting the film sort of finished off. He helped out with some introductions. So I know he looked over it. So I think the deal was okay. We saw hundreds of pounds back rather than thousands of pounds back.
Oh, so you actually got some money back?
Hang on, where was our share?
We got some money back. Not enough to pay back
to get down to Dan's waterfall.
20 quid for Giles, 20 quid for me.
We did. I mean, I had a very detailed recruitment schedule, very detailed waterfall. That was useless because we never got beyond that
first threshold of the expenses. Yes, yeah.
Funnily enough, and I'm gonna say that this is all part of my master plan. The rights do revert back to me fairly soon, so it's going to coincide nicely with when Ollie's making his third film for a lot of money and is a very well-known and successful director, and everybody wants to watch his first film.
Are you going to tell me we could have made Schools Out like 7 years ago, but you just wanted to wait?
Sure.
There you go. Yeah, done. That's it. That's amazing.
Again, it was just all part of the sort of learning experience. Just knowing how I didn't know how distributors work, how the traditional distribution method worked. I didn't know how other distribution methods work. It was just I sort of had to figure it all out and do what I thought was best at the time. Whether that was the right thing for the film or not, I don't know. Maybe I should have pushed the festival route a little bit more first, and we should have tried to focus. I know we had our world premiere at Cinequest, and we went over to Cinequest, and Dan, you came with us.
That's right, of course you did.
I did, yeah.
Yes,
it was amazing.
Which was great fun, and I think maybe I could have put more effort into pushing that some more, and it playing at the festival. So because that, again, I was so focused on let's get this film out, let's get a release, and let's try and make loads of money from it. Whereas, I should have perhaps cared for the film a little bit more.
If I had said to you, or if anyone had said to you at the time, well, you'll get released on DVD, you'll have a limited theatrical release, you'll get a distributor, you'll get US DVD release. If I had laid out all the things that actually happened to The Harsh Light of Day, most of us would have bitten their hand off for it. Myself included. I mean, it's a fantastic achievement. It's just so interesting how it's all relative, isn't it? Because now you look back and you think, oh my God, if only we knew this, and if we only... But I think interesting you talk about the analogy of buying a lottery ticket, because here we are sitting here 10, 12 years later, and all four of us still in the business, still working. That film, to some extent, lesser or greater, set the trajectory for all of us, and we're all working, and so it's like a slow motion lottery win, maybe, but it's a lottery win.
Yeah, but no, Dan's 100% right. The fact you made that when you're at university, is an incredible achievement. The fact Dan's right, you got it released. How many films get made that never even get a DVD release? They don't even get that far. They're on the mum's shelf, maybe. You know what I mean? And the fact is, this did really well. You've got to be immensely proud and immensely overjoyed with the success of it, regardless of the shit that does come with a release like this. And at the time, but it was like I say, it was only 9 years ago when it came out, and how the industry has changed and how much you guys have learnt. And that takes us perfectly on to Schools Out Forever, segue of the year there. Because, because this film, it's like I say, it's your second movie, Ollie. But for you, Emma, again, you've both been working in the industry. But for you, Emma, you'd been this trajectory of making more films, bigger films, and then it came to Schools Out. Now, do you think if you'd made this like 7 years ago when you were trying to make this, it would be different? You'd be in a different position? Like, say, how much have you learnt during that time, and can you tell our listeners what that might be?
No, it wouldn't have been the same film. Ollie gave me the book, I think it was 2011 or 2012, and that's when we first started.
So, but even before Harsh Light of Day came out?
Yeah, I think around that time.
I actually read it before we even shot Harsh Light, but it was during post of Harsh Light when I sent it to Emma and just said, because she was sort of saying, what do you think we should do next? Again, with this concept that probably the next thing would be just around the corner. And I sort of said this, basically. And she said, yeah, that's a good idea.
My port of call was to say, right, okay, well, if we're going to develop this, let's not just do it for shits and giggles. Let's do it properly. So I need to get an option on the rights to develop this into a film. So, looked on the back of the book, Abaddon Books, never heard of that publishing company. I'm sure it was tiny. Traced it up. So, Rebellion. Okay, I think they look quite big. I didn't know who Rebellion were at the time. So I got straight in touch with Jason Kingsley. Jason and Chris are the owners of Rebellion. And said we want to make this into a film, and did get a lawyer this time. So we opted. That was about an 8-month process before we then got the option and started developing it. But again, like I was hungry to just get on and make more films, but also and it's the same for Ollie. We need to work. We weren't at university anymore. We needed to be working. We need to earn a living. So I did work. I worked like not in the industry for about a year. I got a job doing something else. It was still in media, but not in filmmaking remotely. And whilst I was doing that, I was sort of networking, trying to meet other filmmakers and going to a lot of film council, Screen South events, things like that. Somewhere along the line, I can't remember how I met Ben, but I met Ben and Ben Crow, who's the writer-director of Verity Summer. And he had this script, which I really liked, and said, do you want to help me make it? Because he'd seen The Harsh Light of Day, or he knew about The Harsh Light of Day. So I co-produced Verity Summer within the following, I think we made that 2013. Slightly bigger budget. I think we had about 40 grand to make that. But again, it was like, I'd learned some stuff. I learned some more stuff on that. I was sort of very much aware that I always felt like I didn't have any proper industry experience. And that was, I felt like I needed to, there was so much I needed to learn. So I started just working in production. So what I ended up doing, I sort of fell in, you sort of fall into each film. And, I think pretty much every job I've worked on has come from sort of word of mouth, or someone's recommended me or whatever. So I just ended up sort of either production managing or line producing on low budget films to start with. And then each feature had each feature I worked on seemed to have a slightly larger budget. So every film that I worked on, and still I think today, like every film I feel like I'm punching, even working on 47 meters down. I only actually did half of that because I was heavily pregnant when I started working for Kate on that film. So I did the first half of it and then had to hand over to a fantastic PM called Tim Leach because I had to go and give birth.
Of course, gets in the way, doesn't it?
Yeah, but that, like, I hadn't worked to that extent, and that was like pretty much all of that film set underwater. And I think I'll probably always be this way. Just like I like new challenges, and I like doing something that I haven't done before and working out how to do it. It's just another string to your bow, really, isn't it?
Well, the more you do that, the more you are on set or in that world of production, whether it's pre or post, you're learning. You're within that world. So when a conversation comes up, it's not, oh gosh, yeah, what was that again? You can remember it because you're just talking about it 3 days ago or 3 weeks ago or even 3 months ago. But it's still fresh. It's still, everything's about trying to make the best film possible on whatever job you're on.
Yeah, exactly.
It's vital because as directors, you very rarely get to see other directors work, but often you're hardly ever on set. As a director, you're on set 4 weeks every 3 years or something, if you're lucky, on a feature film. Really, that's realistic. Whereas a producer, or if you're production managing, or you're whatever else on a film set, well, you're on set. Actors on set all the time, cinematographers on set all the time, directors hardly on set. That's why it's always good to just keep your ear, keep doing stuff. So it's great, Emma, that you your side is you're like, yep, I'm just keeping going on this trajectory. So when School's Out Forever actually got the green light, that must have been like, okay, cool, we're ready. And Ollie, you must have been like, I'm ready.
I certainly was, yeah. As same as Emma, though, as I say, I've been working a lot on sets sort of way above my level in terms of what me as a director, what I could get, really big budget productions, and finding myself increasingly with quite a lot of say in those, because obviously as VFX becomes a more and more integral part of what we do, the VFX supervisor becomes a sort of quite a figure on. And so I had this weird mid ground in that of experiencing these big productions and seeing what limits them and what doesn't, and what's freeing about them and what works and what doesn't, and then obviously School's Out, when School's Out finally did come along, it was a bigger step up than I've ever had in terms of budget at my fingertips. But I'd been second unit directing a lot of these shows that I VFX supervised, because, and again it goes back to what Dan's saying about the lottery ticket, or the I suppose it's like a compound interest ISA, isn't it, rather than a lottery ticket, but
to make it sexier.
Yeah, exactly. But like, because of doing things like Harsh Light and shorts and stuff, I could at least say to these producers, oh well, I mean, if it's helpful for you, if you want me to go off and just shoot the VFX stuff and not, with my own crew, then that's, and then that sort of developed into second unit directing, and so I got a lot out of that. And then yes, when Schools Out came along, so we'd been working on the script obviously all this time, and as I say, it always comes back to script for me. That is my original sort of love, and actually on the directing side, I mean, we had to shoot a promo for Rebellion to prove that I could direct it. Essentially, I don't think they phrased it quite that brutally.
Okay.
But they were nervous about having. I think probably nervous about having both the writer direct it, but also just my on paper my CV was now much longer as a VFX person, a second unit director, and obviously my key, apart from a few shorts, my key directing credit was nothing since Harshlight. So, and again, obviously me and Emma have worked together since Harshlight, and we've been a very good team with each other. And I was very grateful, because it was basically Emma who said, "Well, let us shoot a thing to prove that we can do it." And we did. We shot the I mean, you guys have seen the film. I think the house sequence where Lee's in his home after he's left school. We shot that entire thing right up to when he leaves on the bike, with a completely different crew. We retained some people, but as a one-off promo, that would work as well. It wouldn't really work as a short film, but we sort of entered it with that mentality, and they liked it, and then they said, "Yeah, okay, you can do the whole thing." So going back to the thing of it's always a hustle. Even then, having written the script that they really liked, we had to hustle to get me to on the directing side of it.
Isn't that amazing? That whole hustle, it never stops. So obviously you had Rebellion on, like you say, Emma, quite early on, and then it took this long. In terms of that was 2000 and sort of 12, 13, 14, around then. So we're talking 6 years before you'd even gone into production. What was happening during that time, Emma? How did you manage to get the money for it? How did it work with Rebellion? Talk us through that.
Well, I mean, it's never easy financing a film. I still don't know how people do it, to be honest. It's not easy, and when you've got a film that, particularly more so in earlier drafts, in the most reductive sense, is kids with guns in a boarding school, it's a tricky one to get people to invest in and think everyone's going to love this and it's going to make loads of money. One of the other things, as I was sort of crafting my skills as a production manager and a line producer, and I was obviously learning a lot from producers that I was working for. But one of the things that I never really saw was how they raised the money, and that was sort of still
a crapshoot.
It still amazes me how people manage to do it in independent film. But we tried, and every so often, like when I wasn't working on another film, because as you guys well know, like when you're on a film, it just consumes your life. You have no time to do anything else. So between jobs, me and Ollie had sort of touched base. Me and Ollie were actually flatmates for a few years as well. So, and I did get some interest at a few meetings. I did a couple of sort of development programs and things with it, and there was sort of mixed interest. But I was never I never got to the stage of getting it more than sort of 50% finance. Like, well, how do I fill these gaps? And every year I was extending the option, which cost money. So it was money out of my pocket.
Totally, it still costs money. It's your pocket, absolutely.
There's a lot to be said for sort of dogged determination, which I think is just a key attribute in anybody that's trying to make a film or work in this industry, full stop. I think every April we extended the option, and it was coming round to the April. I think it was still the year before, but I think we were a few months away from needing to extend the option. And I'd sort of decided within myself, I just need to just put this on the shelf now. I can't keep going with this, despite having what I really felt was a really great script. I didn't know how to get it made. And then heard from Ben Smith, who's head of film at Rebellion, and he said we really liked the script, and I'd had a budget that was around the £1 million mark, and they said, look, we're prepared to fully finance this.
Isn't it amazing when you're about to close one door, you're like, I'm going to close it, suddenly it open, you're like...
Ollie can speak for himself, but for me personally, it felt like all the stars aligned, because I felt so ready to make our next film. All the all the different films I'd worked on as a production manager, as a line producer, all the experience I'd gathered, I felt like everything I'd done had led to, right, now I'm ready. Like, I made my first film because I didn't have a fucking clue what I was doing, and I wanted to make a feature film, and I wanted to learn how to get into film. And then I was like, right, okay, now I need to make my next film, and I need to do it right. And I just felt like, I knew exactly how to make this film. I knew exactly how to achieve this film.
But the content of the film, I mean, that's a tough million. And
it is, because there's so much going on in there. There's people on fire. There's people being thrown out of buildings. There's machine guns. This health and safety thing. There's massive, amazing locations. There's a lot going on.
It's an action film.
It's an action film hidden within a school drama, and it's really well made. It really is. Okay, so now Rebellion have said yes. What was the phone call from you, Emma, to Ollie?
I don't remember it. Do you, Ollie?
It wasn't a phone call. It was you did it in a really weird way, and it took me a little while to actually work out what you were saying, because you'd come round to my flat in Penge, and we would, I think you were just, it was a new place I'd moved into, so I think Emma was just coming to see it, and I was like, right, so what, and obviously we've been working, and I mean, I felt very much the same as Emma. In fact, I was very much on a cusp of kind of like making that choice of whether, and it would have, to just be clear, I'm really grateful for the work, but it would have been a bit of a sadness to me to go, right, I'm a VFX supervisor, that's what's making my money, that's what's pushing my life forward, and a second unit director, and that, that's a good combination to have. That's a useful person on a set. So I, but obviously still had this burning desire to be to direct my own stuff, and particularly Schools Out, and felt very much ready, same as Emma. And then we'd recently had it fall apart again for like the seventh time or something. We'd got as close as we'd ever got to getting it financed, and it had fallen apart again. So we were, and then Emma came round, and I was like, right, so what are you doing next? Just a general, like, what are you working on question, as we all do in the industry to each other. And she was like, I've just got together actually, it just sort of closed the financing on my next film. And I was like, oh, cool, what's that? And she went, Schools Out. And honestly, in the first instance, I couldn't work out whether she was saying "you're out." Like, I've attached a director, and but of course that, and then I saw this big smile, and I was like, "Oh shit! Like, are you? Do you mean that? And she was like, "Yeah, I think." It's looking, and I think at that point it wasn't absolutely 100%, but it was like good enough that you were saying it was looking really good, and it was probably going to happen.
I do remember that. I think I was drunk. I think we'd been drinking.
I think you were drunk.
Even better. Just come round and go, oh, finance my next movie in your face. Oh, it's yours. That's really fun. And then what did you from there? What was the next steps for you guys? Go, right, we're financed. You go, right, we're going to shoot this time. How did you start the whole process?
They said to me, well, we need to look at directors. We're not totally sure, Ollie's the right person for it. And I was like, nah, it's his script. He knows this inside out. He knows this. He has absolute carnal knowledge of every single character on the page. There's no one else. And because of his background in VFX as well. And he like, it was like me. He knew exactly. I knew that he knew exactly how to make the film, and it's the same. It's almost the same thing as like the sales agent, or it's totally different. But just the idea of having someone just walk in after all that work to then direct the film. I just thought no. This Ollie needs to. So I said, let us shoot. Let us shoot just 5 pages of the script. We'll shoot, and they were like, okay, fine. But essentially, it's like we have to show the action and that. By the way, we haven't got any money to do this.
How did you do that then?
Well, they did actually. Rebellion offered up. They gave me $5,000, and they said, "Here's $5,000." But they said, "How much do you need?" I said, "Oh, $5,000 to shoot 5 pages of the script." And so we got again, like the goodwill of it's the same DOP and the same camera crew.
Thomas Hole. So Thomas came to shoot that for you. Great.
Absolutely fantastic. And he was, very, very keen to just help out in getting the film made. And Tom and Ollie had a great relationship, and
so important to have that as well, isn't
yeah,
it? Yeah,
totally. So yeah, as Ollie said, we had a lot of the crew, and the initial plan was because we thought, right, let's shoot this properly, let's shoot this as well as we can, and in an ideal world, to sort of help my budget out, this will just slot into the film, which it could have done, but we changed actors, so we recast Lee,
and the VFX wouldn't stretch to that particular swap out.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So you shot that. They then saw it and they said yes.
Yeah.
And suddenly now you've got your signed off budget and you're ready to shoot.
We got it all done between other things we were doing, as is the way, and I cut it and we got it set and we sent it off. And I was working as a VFX supervisor on a show in India, an ITV show called Beecham House, and it was the last day of the shoot. In fact, we'd done the last day of the shoot. And another tiny bit of Emma tantalization. She went, I think she texted me saying, "I'm going to email you about School's Out," rather than just telling me what the verdict was. And then she sent through, like, so I'm just sat by my laptop, like,
waiting.
And then she sent through, their email saying, that we're happy to go ahead with Ollie and to shoot it. And it was just a really surreal moment. And as I say, in this hotel, it's somewhere in India, in one of the cities. Sorry, we've moved around a lot there, waiting to go to the airport the next morning. And it was amazing. I think I rang up the room service and said, "I'll have 2 bottles of wine." No, wait, I didn't. 1 bottle of wine.
Just one. I love that. But it must have felt, like you said, it felt amazing. But there was another side of you that was a bit like, oh shit, deep breath. I've actually got to do this now.
It's very much like Emma. Not at all. I was so ready by that point. And to go back to what Emma was saying about the way we sort of worked together, I think, I do think that, again, and it's not blowing smoke up our own trumpets, but that's a weird phrase, isn't it?
No, you can do it.
I don't have a trumpet.
We have a shorthand that allowed us to get that much out of that little money. And again, as you say, people listening to this going, £1 million quid's loads of money, but for what, and it literally comes down to, as Emma says, we know the film inside out, we know how to shoot it. And it will come down to Emma coming down, while we're shooting a scene one day and saying, "Tomorrow, can you shoot this entire scene just in that direction? Because that means that we don't need to pay for this, and then we can do it when 2 days later we've got this thing coming in, and it's like we're saving, And I don't mean that like, and because we know it so well, and frankly, we had an amazing cast who could do things like that. We could do things like that, and really just kind of knowing it inside and out well enough that no change really was that much of a problem. Within the grand scheme of it, it's like, well, we know what the shots are. Yeah, we could just do that, and maybe we could not have him in the background of that one. We'll frame it to the left a little bit, all that kind of stuff. And through those tiny little things, like eking out that budget to something that feels. And as Emma said, doing the VFX stuff. One thing I'd say that doing VFX will do for you is a great natural sort of instinct for making something look expensive, because that's essentially what we do with like a day in, day out, is you make stuff look cool. Like, yep. I mean, that the briefs tend to be more specific than that, but it's always, there's always an element of, can you elevate this in terms of production value? And so, learnt a lot there doing that. And then, as Emma said, Tom, our DOP, was just amazing. He's one of those people who can, you can say, right, you've got 5 minutes and we can only use 1 lamp. And the scene will look incredible.
It really did. Let's talk about that. Unpack working with Thomas a little bit and your and him relationship and how that worked. Did you prep, like you say, you prepped massively beforehand, but did you do, obviously you did shot lists, but did you do storyboards? How did you work together? Did you talk about colour palettes? Did you talk about theme? Can you just run us through that?
Well, the funny thing with Tom is, this sounds like a made up thing. We have, I think we genuinely have such a sort of instinctive understanding of what we want. We did do shot lists, and I did do some stickmen storyboards. I mean, one thing I would love, to invest some budget in future projects is proper storyboards. But we felt that was a slight indulgence of the resources. Again, we were kind of using, we knew that we could communicate that, and we didn't necessarily need those. So I would do some stickmen storyboards, but most of the time it was a shot list, and we talked through the crew per scene. Here's what we're going to do. Here's where the camera is. But with Tom particularly, I mean, it was a funny thing. Tom, he was a camera assistant on a BBC show called Atlantis, which I used to work on in the VFX department many, many moons ago. And he was just one of those people who he was on my Instagram, on my Facebook or whatever. And since he left that show and did that, quite confident thing of like going, actually, I'm a DOP. I'm not, like, he decided he didn't want to be, he might have a different version of this history, but from what I could gather, he decided that he didn't want to be a camera assistant jobbing in TV. He wanted to be a DOP in his own right, which, very young, and started managing to get commercial work, and everything he shot I thought was beautiful. And I didn't speak to him for years, like, as in if we'd seen each other in a pub, we would have said hello, but I was just aware of him on all my social media and just repeatedly thinking, God, this looks amazing. This looks amazing. This looks amazing. And so when we came to make the promo, I basically just sent him an email and said, look, I can't, I think we were talking to a couple of DOPs, weren't we? But I'd thrown him in the mix just because of this history of just thinking his work was beautiful. And we went with him, and he shot the promo, and it was amazing. And then by the time we were on set, I mean, it's a very, very, very intuitive, relationship. He's great because he lights. He can interpret, because an area I don't have much technical knowledge in is the actual lighting. It's like, as in what lights, what lamps, where they should go, and he's so good at doing that so intuitively and so beautifully. And then he's also got the dual benefit of not minding me being I'm very fussy about framing. So, and he doesn't mind me going, can we be a little bit to the left? Can we, up that? Can we, because he's as I say, mostly the commercials DOP, and I think he was really interested in getting into more narrative. And we talk about using the camera as a storytelling tool and stuff like that. But he was also happy to be led a bit in that way, which is really useful for me because, as I say, I'm a bit of a pain in the arse in that way. I'm quite fussy. And the other thing he has, which really plays through and this became a real boon for us, a real key thing for us in the way the film is presented and shot. He shot a lot of football promos, and he has this really energetic style of handheld. I can't quite tell you what it is. I mean, he shoots from the hip. The stuff you see before the football match, all those ridiculous images of horses charging each other, incongruously cut together with like footballs for some reason, and it's all like, and he does all that stuff, and he does it amazingly. And actually, we decided this thing with Schools Out where the action was always going to follow a character. We don't shoot coverage really, mostly because we don't have time. Again, that comes back to how to achieve it on the budget. Like if someone over there, if this scene's about Lee in the middle of this action thing, and someone over there gets knocked over or falls off a bridge or something, if he doesn't see it, we don't see it. And that was mostly a time and money saving thing. But what that led to was Tom being able to use this handheld style he has was so aggressively and so confidently, because it wasn't cut into. I mean, it is cut all this. None of them are one shots. They're all cut action sequences. But it just has this drive that I think is so part of what makes the film work and those sequences work. And that's like, the more I saw him doing that, the more I was like, no, do that. Like, and there was a few scenes that were supposed to be like track and dolly, and I was like, no, let's just handheld it like this.
The time was a big reason, yeah.
Time, and also just the feeling. It's like this scene is supposed to be tense, and I'm getting more tension out of the way you do handheld, which normally I think can be a bit scrappy and so I mean, that was a very long-winded answer of saying it's basically a great relationship. We couldn't have done better.
That's lovely. It's really good to hear. What did you shoot on? What camera?
Sony Venice.
Nice. Okay, cool. Because it's easier, lighter to move around as well in terms of him shooting from the hip. Yes,
and we had an initial idea that we wanted it to be a 6K master as well, which was which is part of that, and also that you could detach the you can attach the sensor from the Venice and run it by a cable back to the main body of the camera, which for action stuff is very useful because it means you can stick it behind a bookshelf or something. Do you know what I mean? You can put it wherever you want.
Which is perfect, because there's nothing worse than like, well, we'd love to get, especially in a small room or something. You're like, well, I'm up against the wall already, and you're like, yeah, I don't feel we're in the room yet. So to be able to do that with a camera like that's really useful, and it looked gorgeous. I mean, there was no question about it. It looked absolutely stunning, which is really good. How many days did you shoot for, Emma? How many in total did you have?
It was a 5-week shoot, okay. But then we did 2 days. We did two pre-shoot days to reshoot the stuff in the house, which we had to reshoot the promo.
It really is tough, and filmmakers don't realize that until you've done it and you go, oh my god, I was really burning the candle, because you can't stop as a director producer. You can't literally have a moment where you go, I'm just going to switch off now. You can't. You do that, you've missed something massively important. You go, oh my god, I feel at my depth.
If you manage to sit down at lunch and eat without anyone asking you anything, something's wrong. Something's really wrong.
Something's really bad has happened. There's been a zombie apocalypse, which is again, Giles, a great segue into what the film is about, because we haven't talked about what it actually is. And we don't say it's a zombie apocalypse, but an apocalypse happens in the world, or certainly in the UK, and you have these school kids, and some of them survive, and one of the 50-year-olds who's just been expelled has to make his way back to the school and then survive in the school. It's such a great, cool concept, such a great movie. It's so well made. Emma, I wanted to ask you, did you save in that budget, did you save some money for marketing? Because obviously nowadays everything is online and you can put money towards it. I wanted to know, did you think about that at the start? Was that part of what Rebellion wanted?
No, I didn't. And it was literally just the film's budget, what it would cost to get the film finished. And again, we're quite lucky in that regard, because Rebellion fully financed it. And I should say, the way they fully financed it was that they, rather than me exercise the option and purchase the rights to make the film, I let the rights revert back to them. So it was an in-house, it's a Rebellion production, and then they hired me as a producer for hire to make the film, which is very kind of them, because they didn't need to do that.
Would have been pretty harsh if they did.
I know. That would have been it. I'm telling you, that would have been it. I would have never worked again. I would have crawled into a hole and curled up and died. So thanks, Rebellion. So it's very much their baby. It's their film. They own this film. The marketing was always sort of separate, and also they wanted to pay to get this film made. They wanted to make this film, so we just made the film, and that's a really unusual position actually to be in. We didn't have a deadline. We didn't have a distributor. We didn't have sales agent. We didn't have anybody to answer to at all. As in Rebellion, myself and Ollie, we just wanted to make this one. It was a really, they were always really supportive of the script development and everything, and really supportive of the process of making the film. They just wanted to get the film made and make it as good as it possibly could be. Very few people have seen it on a big screen. Ollie and I have watched the DCP at Molyneux, who did the post for the film.
It's a different experience, yeah, which is such a shame, for us as the filmmakers to, that's not going to be how people see it, but. It's lucky enough to be able to make one, but yeah, it is
exactly,
a shame.
Ollie. Yeah, no, absolutely right. Finally, Emma, I wanted to ask you. You mentioned there about the now people can watch the movie. I wanted to talk about that whole release that you're doing, because you're not going through, as far as I can tell, a regular distributor. You've not gone with Lionsgate or Signature or anyone like that. You're doing it through Rebellion. Is that correct?
Yeah, Rebellion are very keen to sort of. I think they have the same view as me, really, or the same view that I had when I was going through the release of Harshlight, in that they don't like middlemen, and they're very keen to video games, they release themselves, it's that sort of a different world, and they're very keen to sort of apply the same sort of method of thinking with releasing their own content, fair play. So we're releasing through Central City Media. They are putting the film on all the major platforms. So it will be available to rent or purchase from the 15th of February. And then we are, which is slightly indulgent, I think now, but why the hell not? We are doing a physical DVD and Blu-ray release as well. That will be released on the 12th of April.
Oh, amazing. But honestly, the film is superb. I really, really enjoyed it. I honestly thought for you, Ollie, how mature your filmmaking was, how beautiful it was. You know, you and the team, performances across the board was really stunning. I'll be surprised if a lot of these people don't break out. Emma, you've done an amazing job doing that. And it sounds like it was, you know, really hard work, teamwork, and you guys going, let's do this. And it's an amazing achievement, amazing to see. So really well done. Where can people find, is it online, the movie? Like, as in, have you got a Twitter page for it? Got Instagram? If not, where's yours?
The best thing to do is go to the Rebellion website, rebellion.com, and there is plenty of information and other links on there.
I'm on Instagram at Oliver Milburn WD, as in writer director Oliver Milburn WD. I'm trying to post useful filmy stuff on there all the time.
And obviously you can follow me at Giles Alderson. Dan Richardson, where can people follow you?
People can follow me on Dan710s, Instagram and Twitter.
Amazing. February 15th, it is out. School's out forever. Honestly, it's a brilliant indie film. It's really, really cool. Next week, you wonderful people, you're going to love this. We have Donal McCusker, the producer of To Olivia, and joining him is the director, John Hay. How cool is that? To Olivia is out next week, and it's the Hugh Bonneville story about Roald Dahl. Absolutely fucking excellent. You're going to love this one. Donal produced The Hurt Locker. John Hay directed There's Only One Jimmy Grimble and Stig of the Dump. Legends, both of them. So enjoy that for us next Tuesday. And also coming up on episodes very near in the future, we have Jessica Hines. Oh yeah, star of Space, but also she directed, produced and starred in The Fight. And we also have actor Matthew Modine. Oh yeah, star of movies such as Full Metal Jacket, Memphis Belle, and the upcoming Wrong Turn, the reboot. How cool? How cool, people?
How cool is that?
And remember, you can follow us at Filmmakers Pod on Twitter and on Instagram, the Filmmakers Podcast. And if you really want to get in touch with us, then contact us at thefilmmakerspodcast@gmail.com. And if you've made a film, if you made an indie film, you could be on the show as well. So come say hello. Thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate your time a lot. And remember, you can go out there and make your indie film. You can make it happen, just as Oliver and Emma have done. And if you rise up, if you're lucky enough to rise up and do well, it is your duty to send the elevator back down. Emma, Biggins, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for having me. It's so nice to see you guys again.
Dan, appreciate you.
Always a pleasure. Thank you for having me, and it's so lovely to see you folks.
Take care. We will see you all next Tuesday. Go make your own film. Make it happen. And we will see you next week. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Thank you for calling Odeon Cinemas. Please say the name of the film you'd like to watch.
I'd like to watch The Dare, please.
I think you said Elf. If that's correct, say yes.
No, The Dare.
We're sorry, but Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close is sold out. Is there another movie you'd like to watch?
Aye, The Dare.
I'm sorry, but The Dare is not showing in this cinema.